Hey friends, I've got a story for you today. It's full of feelings, unexpected turns, and quiet truths. Stick with me till the end. You might see parts of yourself in it. Ready? Here we go. It was just 3 days before Christmas 2022. Denver lay under a soft coat of snow, the streets glowing beneath festive lights as mellow jazz versions of carols floated by. But that evening, my world shifted with one quiet phone call. I had just gotten home to my small Capitol Hill apartment after another exhausting double shift at the community clinic. My hands were frozen, breath still misting from the cold. I peeled off my scrubs, dropped my boots by the door, and glanced at the small suitcase waiting beside a folded green scarf and a neat row of wrapped gifts, each one carefully chosen, each one a little hope in paper and ribbon. I'd remembered everything, even the nutmeg and that exact toffee my aunt adored. I tried so hard again. Maybe this year I'd be enough. Then my phone buzzed. It was Julian, my older brother. I smiled reflexively as I picked up. "Hey, Jules." But his voice was stiff, rehearsed. "Hey, Lena. Just a quick heads up. Marina's coming for Christmas." His girlfriend. The one into energy healing and once waved sage around because I work in end-of-life care. "She's big on emotional balance," he went on. "And the hospital energy you carry. It's a lot for her. So we thought maybe it's best if you skip this year." Nothing personal. I stared at the blinking lights on my thrift store tree, suddenly less bright. Nothing personal. Before I could even gather a thought, Mom called. Her tone was soft but edged with finality. "Sweetheart, we just want a calm holiday. Marina's very sensitive. If you come, it could stir tension. Honestly, we might not even answer the door." There it was. No lies, no soft excuses. Just a clean cut. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't ask them to reconsider. I simply stood there, phone in hand, looking at the gifts I'd wrapped with such care for people who never truly saw me, only what I could offer. And this time I let the silence speak for me. I moved like someone cleaning up after a goodbye that was never properly said. I opened my laptop and canceled the transfer I'd set to cover their property taxes. Stopped the quiet monthly deposits to Julian's startup. Ended the car insurance I'd co-signed for Dad. I wasn't angry. I was just finished. 4 years, I thought if I gave enough, helped enough, stayed reliable, I'd eventually earn more than a seat. I'd belong. I thought being needed meant being loved. But in the stillness of that room, with cinnamon in the air and the radiator humming, the truth landed gently. I wasn't treasured, just tolerated. Until I wasn't. Outside, the first snowflakes floated down, soft and sure, wrapping the city in quiet. I looked out the window and felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. No more shrinking. No more walking on eggshells. No more hoping they'd remember me without needing something. This Christmas, I wasn't going to be the forgotten one staring from the outside. I wasn't going to be almost enough. They only remembered when I was useful. I used to think this was normal, that some kids got softness and light, while others had to be strong, invisible pillars. I was the oldest. The test drive, Dad would joke. The responsible one. The steady one. Julian. The golden child. The miracle. The dreamer. When he missed rent to fund another album. That was chasing his passion. When I worked overtime to cover bills. I was overdoing it. He graffitied the garage wall at 15. They called it creative spirit. I dropped a casserole dish once and got a lecture. I filled out college aid papers, left them highlighted for Mom. She never asked. When I got into med school, I brought home the letter, hoping for pride. All I got was, "That's intense. Don't lose yourself in it." Then she went back to her celery. Julian dropped out for the 3rd time to start a wellness podcast. And they threw a party. There were balloons. A photo of him with a paintbrush still hangs in the hallway. That same house, where not one graduation banner had ever hung for me, glowed with praise for the son who hadn't held a steady job in years. I once stumbled upon an old sketchbook of mine there, filled with half-done doodles from hospital breaks, sunsets over Denver, wrinkled hands in recovery, It had been tossed in the recycling bin, buried under expired coupons and greasy takeout flyers. When I asked about it, they shrugged and chuckled, said they thought it was scrap. Maybe it was. Maybe I was too. Still, I kept showing up. Through med school. Through sleepless nights in residency. Through the quiet rooms of the dying, where most people don't linger, but I always did. That's what pulled me to geriatrics, really. Those forgotten corners. The people tucked away unless something broke. I saw myself in them. Faded, overlooked, but still holding stories no one asked to hear. Home, nothing changed. I was still the fixer. The steady one. The one who made sure the cracks didn't become craters. When the roof collapsed after a blizzard and the insurance denied the claim, I paid the difference. When Julian's freelance gigs dried up again, I wired money, no questions asked. When Mom's physical therapist stopped visiting after too many missed payments, I stepped in, found a new one, covered the cost. 'Cause I loved them. Or maybe because I still believed love meant proving yourself. Over and over. They didn't say thank you. They didn't have to. In our house, love wasn't spoken. It was implied. Expected. Like breath or sunlight. Ever present, never acknowledged. And I gave, bit by bit, until there wasn't much left. And still they reached for more. Never with malice, just with blind familiarity. I used to think that was what family meant. To be invisible but necessary. Like rebar in a wall. Strong, unseen, and never thanked. But after that phone call, after being told I was too much to be welcomed home for Christmas, something inside me broke quietly. I realized I wasn't scaffolding. And even if I wasn't obligated to bleed for the structure I held up. So I stopped shrinking my life to make theirs more livable. If anything in this hits close to home, stay tuned. 'Cause what happens next? Everything shifts. When Julian maxed out his budget on vintage lenses for his documentary passion project and couldn't afford his flight home for Thanksgiving, I paid for it again. He hugged me at the terminal, called me the best sister ever. By Tuesday it was like it never happened. Another quiet favor folded into the invisible tab I was never meant to acknowledge. That's what I did. Solve. Covered. I buffered their lives like some silent software running in the background. No one ever thanked me. Maybe because once you say thank you, you admit someone is going above and beyond, and that complicates the entitlement. I told myself it was fine. Better to be unseen. Being noticed could mean being judged. Or left behind. So I became the invisible beam inside their foundation. Until that night. Sometimes after long shifts, I'd sit by my window with a chipped mug of peppermint tea and wonder what it would feel like to be seen. Not for my usefulness, not for fixing things, but just for existing. Just for being Lena. But those were indulgent thoughts. Luxuries. Wishes like that were for golden sons with podcasts. Not daughters with spreadsheets and overdue utility bills. So I kept going. I made the bread pudding every year, the one everyone raved about, while asking, "Wait, who made this again?" Smiled. Said nothing. When Julian came up short again, I wired him rent. When my parents got lost in their tax forms, I stayed on the line till midnight, walking them through each page, even as my own tax documents sat unopened next to the fridge. I told myself this was love. This was what love meant. Hold it all together. Solve it all. And maybe, just maybe, someone would see me under the weight of what I carried. But standing there in that tiny kitchen, phone still warm from the call that effectively erased me from their holiday, I saw it for what it was. They weren't going to see me. Not because they were cruel, but because I had trained them not to. That night, the smell of cinnamon still in the air and snow drifting like absolution outside my window, I picked up my phone. Not to plead, not to explain. I opened my banking app. And I stopped it all. The $8,000 in monthly support. Cancelled. The emergency backup savings. No more roof repairs. No more late-night fixes. Next time Julian's car died in January, that would be his story to figure out. The clicks were simple. Mechanical. But the silence after. That felt like power. I didn't answer right away. What do you say to that? That I'd ruined something I wasn't even invited to? That absence had somehow become more threatening than presence. "I wasn't there," I finally said. "I know," Ramona whispered. "But you were supposed to be. They expected you to fix it anyway." A silence bloomed between us. Not heavy, just true. That was always the unspoken contract. I was expected to smooth things over, even when I was the one bleeding. To absorb the dysfunction. To make peace where there was none. To shoulder the weight of what everyone else refused to carry. But not this year. Not anymore. "I didn't ruin Christmas," I said softly but firmly. "I just stopped pretending." Ramona was quiet. Then a sigh, long tired. "Good," she said. Startled me. Her honesty. Her tiredness. Like maybe she'd seen it too all along. The machine they'd built that only worked if I fed it my energy, my silence, my spine. "I'm sorry," she added. "For what it's worth." It was worth something. More than she knew. "I'm okay," I told her. And for the first time in years I meant it. Not okay as in perfect. Not okay as in over it. Just at peace. Whole, in the way people are when they finally stop trying to earn love that should have been theirs all along. We hung up. I didn't reread her message. I didn't go looking for damage control. I just sat in the quiet, the kind that used to scare me, until I realized it wasn't empty. It was mine. That night, I didn't write a long journal entry. I didn't make another list. I didn't even heat up dinner. I just lit a single candle. And watched the flame hold steady. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was absurd. I ruined Christmas. I hadn't touched a single strand of tinsel. Hadn't spoken a word. Hadn't even set foot on their street. But that's the thing about roles people assign you. Once you step out of them, the whole performance starts to unravel. "They said what exactly?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Ramona hesitated. "That your silence was cruel. That you left them to deal with everything. That Julian had to drive Mom to urgent care after she slipped in the kitchen. That Dad was too stressed to cook. That you abandoned them." I swallowed hard. Not from guilt. From recognition. All those years of carrying invisible loads. And now, the moment I laid them down, they noticed. But only the absence. Not the history. Not the weight. Not me. "I didn't abandon anyone," I said softly. "I just stopped abandoning myself." There was a pause. Not empty. Just real. "They're scared," Ramona finally said. "Scared of what it means if you don't come back. If you don't fix it. If you don't love them the way they've come to expect." I stood by the window, looking out at the snow-glazed street. A few kids were building a lopsided snowman, laughing in the quiet distance. "I do love them," I said. It surprised me how true it still felt. "But love doesn't mean disappearing." Another silence. Then Ramona said, quieter this time, "They don't know how to reach you now." "That's okay," I replied. I didn't know how to reach me for a long time either. We didn't talk much longer. No grand resolution. No olive branch extended or accepted. Just a kind of reverent quiet. And when I hung up, I didn't feel broken. Felt intact. Whole. Like the foundation of a house no one else knew how to live in. Finally being lived in by its owner. By me. I was done softening their version of the story. Outside, snow kept falling. Quiet and steady. Wiping away the worn paths I'd carved by shrinking myself for their comfort. And for the first time I didn't feel compelled to set the record straight. No urge to justify, to explain, to clean up the mess they'd made and blamed on me. But it never stops with silence. Not with people who believe your stillness is an invitation. It came next. Wrapped in civility, in the practiced tone of my mother's knock on the door. It was a slow Sunday in January. The kind of cold that presses against the windows like a breath that won't leave. I was at my desk, lost in patient notes. A cup of tea sat cooling at my elbow. Then 3 soft knocks. I didn't move right away. I just listened to my breath, even and unshaken. Then I stood and looked through the peephole. My mother. My father. Julian. Bundled in winter coats. Faces tight with something like regret. Or desperation wearing its Sunday best? I didn't open the door. Not yet. No fear. Just a kind of distant sorrow, like the moment you finally accept the rescue boat you've waited years for is never coming. I cracked the door an inch. Just enough to let the cold touch my skin. Not enough to let them in. My mother spoke first. "We just want to talk," she said, gripping her purse like it held something precious. Like answers, maybe. I stood still. Expressionless. Because I saw it finally. They weren't here for me. They were here for the version of me they depended on. The one who twisted herself into smaller shapes just to be tolerated. But she was gone. And in her place stood someone who had stopped performing. The silence stretched long and taut. My father's jaw clenched. Habit. Julian looked like he wished he could disappear into the porch. And I gave them one word. No. No speech. No performance. No scaffolding built from my own ruin. It was no. My mother blinked, stunned, confused. As though she'd never considered that the daughter she'd leaned on might one day step aside. I closed the door gently. Not in anger. Just finality. I slid the bolt into place. Outside, voices rose and fell. First gentle, then sharper, spiked with disbelief. But I didn't lean in. I returned to my desk, wrapped both hands around my mug of tea. Cold now, but grounding. Let silence hold me like something holy. On the shelf beside me, Marina's letter. Still smudged in places, still full of care. I looked at it and felt a strange kind of weightlessness. I thought about all the years I'd tried to earn applause. All the emotional debts I'd quietly absorbed and called love. I was never built to reflect their pride, or absorb their neglect. There was something else in me. Something unbreakable. They didn't leave right away. Another knock. After. "Lena, please. We just want to talk." I didn't rise. Didn't waver. The letter stayed within arm's reach. My tea, bitter now, tasted like truth. The knocking faded. Then stopped. And in the hush that followed, I understood. Forgiveness doesn't always sound like a door unlocking. Sometimes it's staying seated. Holding the line. Not in rage. But in love for yourself. Because sometimes, peace isn't born from reunion. It's born from the refusal to crumble. A few minutes later. Footsteps receding. Car doors shutting. An engine turning over. They were gone. Not broken, just unwelcomed. I stood and watched from the window as their car disappeared into the snowy street. No ache. No tug in my chest. No reflex to run after what had long ago let go of me. Just stillness. True stillness. The kind that settles when you realize you don't have to plead for space at a table where your worth was never seen. I turned back inside. The apartment felt warmer. Untouched but finally mine. The Christmas tree still stood in the corner. Unlit still. The gifts untouched. They no longer looked like failure. They looked like evidence. I had tried. I had hoped. I had loved freely. They just didn't know what to do with it. I brewed another cup of tea, strong this time. Let the steam rise. Returned to my desk. The letter from Marina caught the fading light. You made a difference. You didn't give up. You made her feel like she mattered. My fingers grazed the frame. It was solid. It was real. Even when your family refuses to see your worth, someone will. Someone honest. Someone watching. I spent years folding myself into smaller and smaller shapes, trying to become someone easier to love, simpler to manage. But in the quiet after they left, it hit me. I was never meant to shrink. Not for them. Not for anyone. Closing that door wasn't cruel. It was clean. It was the moment I finally told the truth without saying a word. They hadn't come out of love. They came because they missed control. The docile version of me who tiptoed through their expectations. But she was gone. In her place stood someone new. A woman who had learned that love doesn't silence, doesn't demand pieces of you in exchange for peace, and never asks you to shatter yourself to keep someone else steady. I leaned back in my chair, let the steam of cold tea drift toward my face, and watched snow fall outside, soft, steady, forgiving. This time I had been my own rescue. And for the first time that was enough. The days that followed passed slowly. Gentle, measured. Like deep breaths after a long-held tension. The silence no longer echoed with absence. Became space mine. Space I had never been allowed to fully inhabit before. I returned to my work. Moved through hospital corridors. Held the hands of patients who had no one else. And those whose rooms overflowed with cards and flowers. I showed up. I stayed present. I did the kind of work that won't go viral. But steadies lives all the same. Then one afternoon a package arrived. No return label. Just my name, handwritten in neat cursive on brown wrapping paper. Inside, heavy ivory paper. Ink slightly blurred from where it had soaked into the page. It was from Marina. She wrote of her grandmother. Still practicing yoga, still visiting the farmer's market. Still full of life. She remembered the time the world started overlooking her. Until one doctor refused to. You didn't just save her life, she wrote. You reminded her it wasn't over. That she mattered. I read the letter again and again. Traced each sentence with careful fingers. That night I framed it. Hung it above my desk where the sunrise could reach it. It became a new kind of mirror. One that reflected who I had always been. Visible. Valuable. Whole. Their failure to see that. Never mine to carry. Weeks passed. Then came another message. This time an email. Uneven, rushed. Less grace, more urgency. We miss you. We didn't mean to hurt you. Can we try again? Buried near the bottom was the real ask. Can you talk to Marina? Ask her to take the post down. Ethan's having trouble finding work. Not regret. Not healing. Just damage control. Just another request dressed in concern but stitched together with entitlement. I didn't reply. Some doors are not meant to be reopened. Not out of bitterness, but out of a respect I had finally learned to give myself. That evening, golden light caught the framed letter. I sat at my desk, eyes closed, heart still. Not because someone finally saw my worth, but because I had stopped waiting for them to. And if any of this sounds familiar, if you've ever tried to earn love with silence or sacrifice, hear me. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to build something beautiful. That does not make room for people who only show up when it serves them. Let's choose peace, not performance. Let's stop apologizing for growing. Let's remind each other. We were never too much. We were always enough.